Okay, now let's see. How would you make it? We actually, last time you were here, it was for one of our workshops on the origins of life, where we actually began to talk about the chemistry that might be responsible for not producing DNA but RNA, which is thought to be the precursor. And we're getting very close. Do you think in your lifetime we'll understand we'll get the transition from organic chemistry to biology?
I do think so. However, I would make what I think is quite an interesting point. I've made it before. It is possible that this event we're talking about, this chemical event, was an exceedingly improbable event. It's possible that since we think there are about, what, 10 to the 22, you tell me, stars in the universe, some very, very high number of
about that,
yeah. And many of them probably have planets. If you want to believe, as some people do, that life on this planet is unique, if you want to believe that we're alone in the universe, then what many people don't realize if they believe that is that that automatically commits you to the view that the origin of life was a quite staggeringly improbable event. That has to be true because the number of opportunities around the universe for life to have originated is so large. And what that would mean is that chemists who are trying to solve the riddle of the origin of life on this planet are totally and utterly wasting their time, because we don't want a plausible theory. What we're looking for is an implausible theory, if you want to believe that life originated only once. Well, I don't believe that. I don't believe that we're looking for an implausible theory, and that is tantamount to saying that I believe the universe is crawling with life. On the other hand, because that argument depends upon the sheer number of available planets, crawling with life could still mean there could be a billion independent origins of life, a billion islands of life out there, and yet they could be still incredibly rare, because a billion is a tiny number compared to the 10 to the 22.
Yeah, that's one of the things, of course, that where cosmology comes in, that one of the things that, but it relates to evolution too, because the thing that makes evolution so difficult for many people to appreciate, from my experience and I'm sure from yours, is that life has been around for a long time. And a human time scale is very short, and it's very difficult to imagine such long time scales. So even if rare events happen in the evolution of life, with 4.5 billion years, there's lots of time for many rare events to happen. Similarly, in the universe, the thing that people don't realize is that rare events happen all the time, because the universe is big and old. And the example I've used probably on this stage before, to me it's one of an amazing example of that is the reason we're here before life, the fact that as I've often written, that we're all stardust, that every atom in our body came from an exploding star, and the atoms in your left hand may have come from a different atom, from a different star than the atoms in your right hand, because during the Big Bang, the only elements that were made during the first moments of the Big Bang were hydrogen, helium, and a little bit of lithium. And lithium may be important for some people in this audience, but the really important stuff, the carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, was made in stars. And the only way it can get into your body is if the stars were kind enough to die, so you would be born. And but stars die only about once per 100 years per galaxy. And so it seems like, how could that happen? And in fact, but nevertheless, in the age of our galaxy, 200 million stars have exploded. Yeah. And if you look with a telescope, or to get a very powerful telescope, go out to a dark spot outside Phoenix and look at a dime-sized hole in the sky, with the most powerful telescopes we have today, you can see 100,000 galaxies in that little dark region of the sky. So rare events are happening all the time, and the same is true in a biological context. And I think it's the fact that we live a brief 100 years or so, and that makes evolution so difficult for people to comprehend.
Our brains were sculpted by natural selection on the African plains to only perceive timescales of a very short order, of a few years, a few decades. Then, if you say that a star explodes once every 100 years or so in our galaxy, the number of centuries that our galaxy has been around is a very large number of centuries. And and the number of centuries available for evolution to have taken place is extremely large. This is exactly as you say. One of the main reasons people don't understand evolution is that they cannot grasp the immensity of time that's been available. You sort of idiotic statements like, well, I'll believe in evolution when I see a monkey give birth to a human. I mean, I've seriously heard people say that.
Oh yes, so have I. In fact, you know, I was going to ask you exactly that. What do you say to people? I was testifying in Texas to try and keep evolution in the schools there, and a woman got up and said, you know, my grandfather wasn't a monkey. I said to her, well, in your case, it's not so clear, but what do you say? I mean, I think that's probably one of the biggest misunderstandings about what evolution is, and it's probably worth explicitly pointing out the fallacy of that. So why don't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose it's mostly the sheer length of time that there's been around. People, many of them think that evolution is talking about monkeys giving birth to humans. They don't realize that it's 25 million years ago that we had a monkey for an ancestor.
So we have a common ancestor with monkeys. It's not as if...
Well,
and then
right.
people say, why are there monkeys today if evolution happened?
Yeah, and that displays a kind of arrogance that assumes that all that monkeys ever want to do is turn into humans.
Some of them go the other direction too, but I guess.
The point is, evolution is a constantly branching, diverging process. 25 million years ago, our ancestors might have looked like monkeys. They would have been the common ancestor of modern monkeys and modern humans and modern apes. We are, of course, apes. That would have been the common ancestor. If you'd been handed it, you probably would have called it a monkey. I mean, it would have been monkey-like, and you would have called it a monkey. So I suppose the main thing to get across to that idiotic woman that you described is that we are descended from common ancestors, and that monkeys are doing very nicely as they are, as monkeys. They've gone on, branching and branching and branching, living in trees, doing all sorts of different things in trees, eating fruits, eating insects, eating leaves, doing monkey-like things extremely successfully. Apes are, we are actually apes, so we're not monkeys. We're apes because we're tailless, and the apes that we are cousins of are doing much less well, unfortunately, than the monkeys are. The apes that we're closest cousins of are chimpanzees and bonobos, equally close, by the way, to chimpanzees and bonobos, because they have a more recent common ancestor with each other than they have with us. However, we are chimpanzees would regard us as closer cousins to themselves than they would regard gorillas. So chimpanzees and humans are closer cousins of each other than chimpanzees are to gorillas, which surprises some people, but we are actually very close cousins of chimpanzees.
Well, you know, something just came up in my mind that I wasn't going to talk about, but maybe it's worth it. When you talk about the fact that the great apes are doing poorly, in fact, we are living, due to humans, in probably one of the greatest periods of extinction of life on the planet. More species are probably going extinct now at a faster rate than, other than perhaps when there were global catastrophes like a meteor hitting the Earth and killing the dinosaurs, perhaps, or something like that. But one of the things that may be worth stressing, especially when we talk about intelligent design, which we won't talk about much. But
I'm all for intelligent design. I'd like to see more intelligent
design.
I'd
like to see, exactly. Yeah. But in nature, one of the arguments that's worth pointing out when people argue that we're designed and the whole Earth was created so we would be here, and we'll get to that in a moment, is the fact to realize that probably 99.999% of all species that have ever existed are extinct.
Yeah.
Which doesn't suggest good design.
No. Well, nothing suggests design. Well, no, that's not quite true. I mean, superficially, things look designed until you look closely at them, and then you see all the bad design features, all the what an engineer would see as design faults. I mean, sort of really crazy things that that any decent engineer would send back to the shop for doing. I mean, things like the recurrent laryngeal nerve that goes down into the chest and then back up again, rather than going by its most direct route to its end organ. The kind of thing, it's exactly what you'd expect if we're historical accidents rather than if we're designed.
Now, the other argument that I often get when talking is first is the monkeys and people argument, and then the next one is if evolution really happened, why isn't it happening now? And so,
well, it is. It's happening all the time, but once again, on a timescale that's mostly too slow for us to see. We are condemned to live only for a few decades, and that's too slow, too small a timescale to see evolution going on in the sort of interesting animals that we like to see. We can see it in bacteria only too vividly, because of course that's why antibiotic resistance is such an immensely important medical problem. If doctors at the time of the invention of penicillin had had their Darwinian wits about them, they would have been able to predict that resistance to antibiotics would have evolved very fast, which indeed it has. And by the way, I hope there are some doctors here, it's very, very important for doctors to understand Darwinism, and I recommend Neste and Williams's book on Darwinian medicine. It's got the ridiculous title, Why We Get Sick. Why would any doctor buy a book called Why We Get Sick? But the real title of that book is The Science of Darwinian Medicine, and I wrote a blurb for it which said, buy 2 copies and give 1 to your doctor. So if there are any doctors here, please read that book. It's very important.
You know, it's interesting, because I don't know if you've had this happen, but I've had people write me saying, I'm a medical doctor, and I don't believe in evolution.
That's a disgrace.
Yeah.